Okay, this is going to be part two for BISS 4403, excuse me. And as I said before, we're going to work on we finished chapters 4 and 5 in part 1 of the video for February 14th. And now here in part 2, we're going to cover chapter 6. And I have that the place where you upload it. Now I have the lunches database 6 here, okay? And we do have some options in terms of what we're going to do, but this covers how to make tables, okay? And it's going to be not as fast and quick as, say, chapter 4 and 5, which are really a lot of consensual, all cerebral material or more thought material. This chapter goes into data types and, in other words, the stuff that goes into a table, okay? Now, if you take a look, for example, at page 212 in the textbook, you're going to see we're going to see a code to create a table, and you get an empty table. Now, they use the create table, and here's the lunches 6 database. So let's just go ahead and get it opened up. And then we'll download it. And then I'll throw it on my desktop. And there it is. Of course, now you're going to want to do the work that you need to do to download, and then upload the thing for credit. So I'm going to go into the queries, and we're going to take a look. And you're going to see we have a series of these. Now, look, what I like to do is kind of combine a lecture with a workshop where I walk you through the chapter and we do some work. Let's start, as you here, with this a 6.3 insert 1, okay? And, well, before we do that, let's go ahead and run some of that code that we've got. The code there on page 212 is not, it uses the create table, and he says you'll get an empty table, but that's not going to happen. So let's diminish this down, and you will want to have the Patrick materials available. That's the code that's over there. And we'll open that up. And here he has, we use create the table, and I don't believe the create table syntax is going to work. But let's take a shot at it, because I had in my notes that it didn't work, but I can always be mistaken, but we'll try it. I believe create table is the provenance, is the domain of Oracle. So we're going to run this query. This is 6.1 Access SQL on page 211. Okay, and it says foods already exist. Okay. And it made the table using that. That's wild. Now, okay. Whoa, that's interesting. All right, now before we take a look at the data sheet view, I want you to notice something up here in the ribbon. Okay, you'll see that it says data definition. When we create a table or we work with constraints and we run a query, we're going to get that feedback, and in any of the commercial products that database administrators use them, they do. And we created a table with these fields and the type of data. So let's look at this at the data sheet view. And so we've created the query. And I'm going to save this as 6-1 Harmon SP 19. Or now Harmon 6.1 Harmon. Yeah, you're going to be SP 2019 or 20 or 19. We've got it created there. Okay. Now it had told us that we already had a table. So let's look here for the table 0601 foods. And we'll open it up. And notice we don't have any data. We just simply created the structure for the table. Now, this would mean you've got this empty table, and then we could do this. I've talked about it several times, but we'll just go ahead and do it again. And we'll close those off. And I'm going to click Create. And I'm going to do a form. And I'm going to make this a split form. And this is for 0601 foods, excuse me. What you see here is a way to input the data. That can be done by a customer or the salesperson making an order, whoever. But this is the easiest way to populate that table. And it's going to have the characteristics. Now, as you input the data, okay, you're going to start to see the bottom part here begin to fill out. Okay. That's all there is to it. And so we would use the forms to create them. I'm kind of surprised because the last time I ran the create table, I guess Access has gone ahead and allowed that. Because the last time I ran, this is last fall, I'm kind of surprised. This code did not work. But in fact, it has. Now, over on pages 214 and 215 is some very, very important information, okay? And this will be information for you as you go out and you deal with IT people or deal with a database administrator, etc. This table walks you through all of the data types for Oracle and Access and the constraints. It continues that. There in Oracle and Access data types. with comments about their differences and how much they are alike. Same story there at the bottom of page 215. And this continues on over to 216. Okay. The whole idea of this is so that you understand that the type of data you have in a table will often dictate what you can get out of it or do with it. And it also becomes an issue if you're running a large enough operation and you're handling millions of pieces of data a month. You need to be very sure that as you create legacy tables, you've done so in the most efficient manner possible. Storage space costs money, especially if you're going to try and do it on the cloud like everybody wants to now. It costs money to push that stuff through a network. It costs money to have somebody come in and create it and program it and maintain it. So you want to make sure that the investment is worth, that the return, that the investment will give you what you want in terms of information. And remember, we said this over and over. The whole idea of learning about databases, of learning about spreadsheets, of understanding the visual display of data is just simply because data, information technology uses data as a way to help us create information. And information is something that's actionable. Okay, so we took a look at that. They'll walk through text, subtypes, etc. And this is my database 6. So I'm going to go back to the tables here. Pardon me, to the queries. And we'll scroll down here and you can see on 6.1, the insert. Let's open that up and look in design view. And here we're going to insert into 0603 these text data types, values, A, 1, and 1. And I want to find that over there for you. So we can spend some time talking about it. Now you can see, let me stop before I do that, okay? And the Access SQL that starts in 220 and runs all the way through 221 is a series of queries. There's 6.3, I call 6.3, then 6.3 the first insert, 6.3 a second insert, another insert. You could see why using forms is just so much better. And working in the GUI in the table itself as opposed to running queries, okay? And the GUI that you see in Access, that is the for a table, the design view is now every major every commercial DB company, every commercial product has that capacity. It's really for the DBAs. And they end up with a results table at the bottom of F that's, well, it gives us the length of the string, some information about all of these queries they've had you run, or these inserts to create the table, okay? And then the insert statements. And we can run this and let's see what happens. We're about to append one row. And we did that. Now, let's go look at the 0603 text data types. And so we'll go back to the tables. Now, there's also tables and related views. So let's do that one. And I want to see 0603. And I'm seeing 614. Let's go back and just look at tables. Okay. There we go. That's going to give us the. All right, here's the text data types table we just messed with. We have some data types explained to us there in terms of the variable length, the fixed length, how a long string of it, and it shows us how we can handle these text data types that are there. And the charts back there on 215 and 216, you'll see they go into that, handling everything from text and a counter to float. Again, from a strategic or a business-oriented issue, I'm going to diminish this down for a second. Let's go back in over here into the modules. All right, and I'm going to open up the welcome, and I'm going to do a search for the analytic cube. I'll just do the search for the cube. Here's the analytical cube. Now it's going to render itself out pretty well here. We should have tables that would support these queries. Now, how? Things like how I want the text displayed, how long will I accept variable characters, which is all characters, how will I handle that? Will dictate the type of will dictate the content I get. And so if I look back here at this query that I had run on 0603, you can see, well, I have the row, the variable length, the fixed length, and then the long strings. Let's go into the design on that and take a look. Now we have a row ID. It can be three field size of 3. Same thing with the variable length string. The fixed length has 3, and the long string has 3. Okay, had to deal with this. We'll resume the sharing. Okay, good. Again, this illustrates these blocks are all tables, and we can mix and match and pull them together. As we've talked about this idea of seeing data as a multidimensional type of thing. And that's why I have the analytical cube here to remind you that I can, once I have these tables created and they're created effectively, I can begin to pull data from them. And by linking the tables, I can get even more robust results. And that's really what's going on there. Now, go back over here to the modules. And you can see we did quite a bit of work there. And this is 6.3 insert 1. So if you look at the page 220, okay, you're going to see that Access SQL, you'll see create a table, okay, and then you have an insert, the first insert, which is this one that we've got here, text data types. And then there's another just below that's another insert where we put in some data types. So that's all we're doing. Now, really all we needed to do was go over and open up a design table and put the information in that we want. That's all. But when we create a table, we've got to make sure that, first of all, it has a business case, there's a use for it, and a use for every single field that's in that table, i.e. dimension or field, and that we're clear about we don't have any nulls, or we make certain that we know what that's about, we have the definitions, etc. Now, I'm going to close this off. And I'm going to click Create, Query Design. I'm going to close it off, and I'm going to go to the SQL view. At the bottom of page 223, the authors give you information on putting data into a new table. So I'm going to try this and see if this works. I think it might. And you'll see what I'm doing here in just a second. Like L foods into foods.asterisk into section 607 foods. From L foods. 1_foods. And a semicolon. This what happens. Okay, I need to make sure I've got, I think it's an L, small L. think that's probably it. Let's see if that does it. It says the existing table will be deleted before you run the query. So it's going to get rid of the existing table and give us the new one. So let's run it. And we're about to paste 10 rows into a new table. Let's talk about what we just did here. We selected everything from the foods table and we put it into a table named section 0607 underscore foods. And we got that from the foods table. So we use the select statement. The thing that's unique there is that we use foods dot asterisk. And what that means is we got everything. Okay. And we can go look at that table and we'll see the data in there. In fact, here it is. Let's open this up. And there's the data. So we just, the syntax, the textbook at the bottom of page 223 is not accurate. What I've done here is accurate. And I'm going to call this, let's see, I'm going to save it. And what do I want to save this as? At the top of page 224, they show you the table with the new data loaded into it. I'm going to call this 6-7 Harmon SP2019. Okay? Now, again, you can run the queries if you choose to, but you can always just simply create and go into the table design mode and design the table. And once you have your fields, you can have the general properties in there. So I'm going to call this tax ID, and I'm going to call it data short type. And notice once I did that, the field properties come up. It's the field properties and the lookup. The field we've done lookup tables before in 1123. This shows us the constraints that we add. It's 255 characters. We said it's not required. We could make it required, and we could change that field size down to something that's manageable. Okay, so I won't keep that. Now, again, putting data into a table can also be simply using a form. And I talked about that last night in terms of the way that we have end users of the system or partners input data. If we're sharing an e-commerce store, business to business, where I have a supplier who has tables that tell us, transactions that have occurred, when we bought from them, how much we bought, how much is in their inventory. This would have to be a significant business partnership. You can go ahead and see that information. Okay, and then place your orders. Then you're talking about an end user or requester filling out the form. It's the same as we've talked about many times when I go to Amazon, even when I go to Google, I'm doing a search. we create a form that your credit card has a chip. It has data that goes to a table because that chip is literally a form that feeds your cardholder. Is there enough money in the account? Does this account look okay? And you'll see today even some privacy things, particularly if you go buy gas, or if you stick a card in, they will almost always ask you for your zip code. If you use a card that doubles as a debit/credit card, like a lot of financial institutions issue, it may ask you to put in the password, but you're the one filling it in. And so the idea that you're going to go in and put the data in the table, it's good for you to understand how that's all going to happen. Okay. They come to the over there on page, the authors bring us to page 226, and they talk about, okay, creating a primary key in a table. All right, and they show you at the bottom, at the top of at the top of page 227, they show you the protocol for creating a primary key. Now, you can write that code, and there's code at the bottom of page 227 that is Access Oracle code. And we'll find that. We'll take a shot at running it. So we get. And this is going to be 6.9. This is the altered table. So I'm going to click Create. Query Design. Close it. Go down to the SQL view. And I'm going to run it. This is the primary key already exists in that table. Okay, let's go down to 0609 Foods and take a look. Now we'll open it up into the design view. And you'll see it has two primary keys, product code. This is a dual key, product code, and supplier ID. Okay. Oh, you can go ahead and save this if you want. Since we ran, but we already had the primary keys. I'm going to call this 6-9 Harmon SP2019. And I'll close it. Now, when you look at the section of 609 Foods table, there's something that you probably have not encountered before, and this is a dual primary key. You say, why? Let's think of it for just a second, okay? The supplier ID should have its own unique number. Therefore, for this table, it's got to be a primary key. The product code is the same story. So between the two of them, you get a unique identifier, and that is a particular product that's provided by a particular supplier. And let's go to the data sheet view, and we'll see that there's the supplier ID and the product code. And this way, there are no mistakes. We know the supplier, we know the product. And that's pretty much what's going on there. So you'll often find that where you have two dimensions that work together. In this case, suppliers. Suppliers will sell you many products. So you want to make sure you have, if you've got three suppliers who sell you the same stuff, you want to make sure that you know who you got the batch of bolts from. If they sell you bolts, it's not uncommon for a company, especially say the large fast food chains, might have 5 or 6 vendors who provide them with French fries, or who provide them with beef or chicken that's to be used in preparation of a meal. For a simple reason, if you draw on local suppliers, you can usually get a better price deal, or if you absorb the high price, you don't have transit costs. So this is part of the business case for this type of dual key. There at the bottom of page 228, they use the drop constraint, and that's exactly what it says. We get rid of a primary key. You could go into the graphic user interface and do the same thing. And then here they have you add the constraint back. Okay. So yeah, it's if you want to run the code, we can. I guess we'll take a stab at it. We'll close this off. And we're going to go back here and we're going to look for 610 method 1. Here it is. We're going to use the name of a constraint to drop it. Okay. And then we're going to add it back. So we're going to use the alter table. Click. And we'll click create. Query design. I'll go to the SQL view. And we'll run the alter table. Okay, it doesn't exist. But notice something, even though it didn't execute, you see we're working with the data definition query. Close that off. All right. Now, what we would have to have done was to add there in that instance, I'd already worked through these problems, and I had done what I call 610 number 2, and that's the code at the bottom of page 328 where I add a primary key. Then we could just resort back. And talk about adding new columns to a table. Page 230, and we have that code there. So let's take a look at it for a moment. Okay, and this is add a column to the table, and alter table, introduce date time, introduce date time. And I'm going to add this in here. This is, he's got foods. I'm looking here in the text at the top of page 230, and it has date underscored introduced date And I think I'm going to put date time because I think we're supposed to get a date and time stamp. So let's try that. There's the query. And we're going to alter the table. And so we'll click create. And we'll go to the SQL view. And we'll run this and see what happens. And so they're telling us it already exists. Now, we'll click OK, but let's go over here to the 611 foods and take a look at it for just a minute. And we have, it was the date it was introduced. And let's go into the design view for that and we'll see. And they have it as a date time data type. So it's already there. We'll go to the data sheet view. And that's empty. But they want us, you could see if when I clicked on that, it automatically gave me a little calendar. So let's call this, save it as 611. Now it doesn't work, we know that, but that's okay because it already exists. Harmon SP2019. Okay. And there they show us in the middle of page 230, the beginning table and the ending table. And those date times are all null because we didn't put any data in there. Then they talk about extending the length of a column. And on the 0612 foods, let's look at this for just a moment. Okay, so we've got it here. And we're going to open it up and we're going to go to design view. And we're going to see the description, has a description there, that column, it's short text, and it already has 25. Now, if we wanted, it's got variable characters, okay, and it's a variable character, 25. In terms of the field size. Then they walk us through deleting a column from a table, which is there at the top of 233. And you alter a table, this is on the 613 foods, you drop the column price increase. And they show you the beginning table and the ending table. You can also do that by just deleting it out of, going and using the GUI and just delete it. Now, if you do, make absolutely certain before you get rid of a column that it's not really important. You can add it, but once you eliminate the column, any data in the column are gone. So you really want deleting columns, you really want to think about it very, very seriously. Over in 614, this is pages 234, 235, and they show you how to insert data from one table to another. The beginning table, the employees table. Okay, then you select it into a new table with a particular phone list where the employee ID is between 203 and 206. If you look there, it says the very first one. It says select last name, first name, phone number as text. It should be as extension. So that's a column alias. Let me pull it up on here so you can just see it. You'll see it clear. We're going to select the last name, the first name. We're going to use a column alias. That phone number, we'll call that as extension. And then we're going to have some blank space here as a column for any notes. Now this thing right here, that's, I'm not sure what that's supposed, but it shouldn't be in there. And we're going to select all that into the phone list. The 06014 phone list that from the employees table where the IDs is between 203 and 206. Now, if you look at the results set at the top of page 236, there it is. The authors do spend some time, talking about duplicate roles, okay, and handling them. Now they can be a problem, but let's look at this for just a minute, all right? If you go to page 238, you're going to see that there are two duplicate roles, one for hamburger, okay? Well, you have one, the hamburger and then hamburger. Now, they give us a note there to explain that, okay? And if you go on over to the notes and you take a look there, you'll find those. It says these rows are duplicates. Okay, and they give you a business case. Duplicate rows may have the same name and address, same information, but they tell you it doesn't mean that it's redundant. And they show us some syntax there over on page 239, that's 616, on eliminating duplicate rows. Rows, excuse me. You say, how do you end up with duplicate rows? It's simple. For example, a church I work with, they keep attendance every Sunday. Now, a person could be a member of a class, but they might visit another, we call them life groups. They might be teaching in a life group, but be a member of another life group. So you've got duplicate information there. And notice that although hamburgers were purchased, the object that was bought, you have hamburger and hamburger, and here, this is something you run into with fact tables. If you look at the bottom of page 240, you really are looking at a fact table that shows us what was bought, how much it was paid for, and when it was purchased. And we have hamburgers, and we say, okay, give me a report of everything that we sold between the 14th and 15th of June. And there you go. And we know that at least we know two people bought hamburgers. And we don't know how many burgers, we know they both bought a hamburger. So there's nothing there that's all that revolutionary or exciting. And finally, when you come over to page 246, 242, excuse me. This is the ending table, and you see that the hamburgers, now they've been eliminated, although you want to make sure, if you do so, that it's in your best interest. Now, what can stop the confusion, for example, to make certain that a fact table makes sense to you, is if you don't have a name, or if it's just, if it's purchases of items, okay, then you need to have a unique ID for that item, as well as its description, as well as its price, as well as the date and time, so that you know that you're not duplicating information. And that's really about all there is to it. I'll finish up by saying this. And first, I encourage you to take a look at the author's page 243, where they give you some key points. Let me add just some comments on my own very quickly. And let's go down to the modules. Okay. Close this up. And so you'll want to have what we've worked with here, and you'll want to save that and upload it for your workshop for Access 6. The development of tables, a place where you store data, always has to be predicated by having a table that has the dimensions or the fields that you need in the format that works for you, in the size with which you can afford to live with. Now, prior to that, okay, let me stop. Once you have the table created, then you can go back and begin to look at your options in terms of how data are entered. There are going to be some companies who will have data, let's say a sales fact, let's say a sales table, or multiple tables that feed into a fact table, a list of sales that occur. That may come from credit card, somebody uses a card, it may come from an invoice. So there are going to be multiple sources, most likely, where the transaction record will occur. And it's important that you're mindful of that, and that you're very, very mindful that the more constrained a table, the better the data you'll get. You want to leave nothing to chance. And when I see these tables in here and the authors say, oh, it's not required, I'd make everything required. If you don't need it, don't have the field in there. If it's required, have the fields. This is typically is going to be a team kind of approach between IT and the decision makers and the end users. Sometimes those who also, the end users in terms of decision makers and customers, be those customers internal or external. So you need to have some coordination. This isn't something where the IT person or the company boss just puts it together. You want to make sure the tables are constructed in such a way that you don't waste time and money, and you don't get a bunch of anomalous data, so that you can harvest that data, because those tables make up your warehouse, and you want to be able to find stuff quickly and easily and you want to be able to find the right stuff quickly and easily. Especially if you want to look for patterns in transactions. Everything is real time now and becoming more and more so because of high-speed computing, because of the internet, because of online analytical processing tools that are developed and give us up-to-the-minute pictures of sales and inventory, where stuff's at in terms of transit, all of that information. And when we worked in business problem analysis, we spent some time about how do I take that and put it into a visual package that someone can easily understand. But here is the database. That's the foundation for this thing we call a dashboard, okay? And so are spreadsheeting types of capabilities. Now, just to kind of close this out, one more to close this out so you could see, and then I'll end the meeting here. Let's go into week 1. And let's look at Northwind Traders. I'm going to download Northwind Traders. And then I'm going to open it up. Now I have a login. I'm going to log in and watch. Here's the dashboard. Now this is crude. Commercial products like Oracle, SAS, SAP, all the different countries that peddle this stuff, companies that peddle dashboards. This dashboard, and we could teach an entire course on just developing dashboards. You can see that we have two KPI. One is, how many active orders have you got out there? Okay. And then, do we need to reorder any inventory for all of our products? Then we have some quick lists: view the inventory, view the orders, customers, purchase, sales report. And what you're really doing when you click on that link is it generates a query of sorts or a view. Click on this, you'll see it. Okay? Target levels, when it's due from the supplier, etc. So we've kind of come full circle as we started off with Northwind Traders, talking about the data warehouse concept, different types of data warehouses. We looked at the concept of a data mart, and now we come full circle by creating tables, and those tables feed us in terms of our KPI, active orders, inventory to order. If you don't have it, you can't sell it. So this is a sales database of this person, Andrew. These are Andrew's KPI, especially the active orders. Okay, but they also know, do we need to order new stuff? Do we need to reorder any inventory? And you can go ahead and take a look, and we saw that, and we got a picture there of Northwind Trader dried pears. And we get the product, and there it is. And they have a little folder here. You could have a picture of the thing. You could also probably would have a picture of it, and you might even have the bar or the barcode. And then over here, here's a query that generates this report. And it shows us the total inventory, what we've allocated, how much is available. So is it time to purchase? Well, that pretty much does it. I'm going to close this. And you have the 6. You can upload that to for the workshop 6. And of course, I really truly hope I'm going to see better attendance next week. I expect to for the ground-based portion of the course, and also expect to see it coming with your textbooks. You're not going to get the value out of this that you would otherwise. This is going to pay off for you in the long run, because when you, at the end of your time here and you graduate and you sit down with an employer and they say, so you've done some work with SQL. Yes, I have. You have some good understanding of a database. Yes, I do. And you could say, well, have you looked at Oracle at all? And somebody will say, yes, we've looked at Oracle. And yes, we studied SAS, we studied SAP. I guarantee you, you're going to be head and shoulders above that person who comes in who's really good at spreadsheets. There are plenty of those people. There are few people who understand how I use a database and why I use it. And then, of course, as we've had this mantra about visualizing it, creating a picture of the data so they tell a story, so they communicate, that's going to really set you heads and above, because then you'll be in a position to understand your dashboard that you're going to have. You'll be in a position to have some conversations of saying, well, if I'm responsible for this, could I also see the transit data? So if I'm in sales and my customer calls and said, is the stuff on the way? How's it being sent? I want to have an answer. Okay? So there's some great practicality here. Now, the truth is, I've worked with these things for years and years and years. And so it's redundant to me. It's second nature. But as you start to think about these tools, spreadsheets, databases, and how I use the two of them together to take data and turn it into actionable information, is absolutely critical and essential. So that's chapter 6. And for the second week here, this is for Thursday, the week of Thursday, I provided you with some resources to take a look at that utilize database technology. And we went to a few of them, okay, which is fine. And I would encourage you also, perhaps, certainly, to take a look at, and I mentioned this yesterday, at these resources for week 3. I don't go in and curate these for nothing. I do them to give you an opportunity to say, okay, well, how is this done out? Are there practical examples of this in the world? And yes, I'll show you those. Here they are. Okay? Well, that will just about do it. And I'm going to stop the share. I'll stop the recording, and I'll see you guys Thursday night next week.